Now, given that Jon and Dave are really on a course correct for the Star Wars franchise, and they're really trying to rebrand Lucasfilm as we speak, a lot of changes have been happening behind closed doors over at the company to really perfect the Star Wars franchise, and to really rid of Kathleen Kennedy's vision of Star Wars as we, of course, know it. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, where we stand today is there is a lot of things happening between Jon, Dave, and the Disney executives, and really trying to rebrand Lucasfilm as a company. As you all know, over the past couple of months, Kathleen Kennedy has been losing more and more power over at Lucasfilm on the financial end of the spectrum. She's already lost most of her creative power. She only has some control over the Acolyte and Skeleton crew now, given that Jon and Dave are really fixing roughly 40% of each project, which is exactly why I say both of those shows are going to have different tones at different points in time, which may or may not be a good thing. We'll have to wait and see. But that brings us to exactly what Jon and Dave recently finalized over at Lucasfilm, and how it exactly entails something very specific related to Lucasfilm employees and a specific Lucasfilm team for an actual Star Wars project. We will be tapping into every single detail about that, and exactly what it means for the future of the franchise at heart. Now, as you all know, Chapter 21 of The Mandalorian Season 3 will debut tomorrow, and it's going to be a very different episode in comparison to all the episodes that came before it. Given that this is going to be the last half of the show now, Jon and Dave have a different treatment of the actual series. Now, beyond that, with Favreau and Filoni busy cleaning up house over at Lucasfilm with the authorization of Bob Iger that will take place over the next 2 years, Jon and Dave recently fired an entire Lucasfilm team that has now been finalized. This team that was fired was said to be assigned to take care of The Mandalorian Season 4. These Lucasfilm creatives and crew that were fired were igniting creative differences with Favreau and Filoni, and wanted to prevent any appearances of the cameos such as Luke Skywalker, Anakin, and even Ahsoka in the 4th installment of the series. This actually caused lots of drama behind the scenes that kept on getting worse the past couple of months, where Jon and Dave were having meetings with the Disney executives on creating a new team for Mando 4. Now, they recently hired an entire new team for the new season and laid off the previous employees, many of which have been let go from Lucasfilm entirely, others of which were transferred over to the Skeleton Crew and Acolyte teams. Now, I want to pause here quickly before I get to the next big development about all of this, is that one thing that Lucasfilm is going through right now is a massive shift in the atmosphere, the workplace, so to speak. And this is going to be a very slow transition. It had a very, abrupt change in the very beginning, but now it's more progressive. The thing about this is that Jon and Dave want to have a good working environment in order to achieve their proper goals, and to actually have a more smooth process. So basically what's happening here in this scenario is you had a lot of employees, creatives, team members that were loyal to Kathleen Kennedy that had a lot of problems with Jon and Dave's vision of Star Wars Mandalorian Season 4, where they felt that Luke, Anakin, and Ahsoka were completely just meaningless and not needed for the 4th season of Mando. And that just goes to show you guys that they want nothing to do with the legacy characters, nothing to do with Rebels characters or anything like that. And that they believe that Jon and Dave are going to sabotage Star Wars with all these different cameos and all these different pieces of fan service, but fan service done in the correct way where it serves the story. So, obviously Kathleen Kennedy has problems and has had problems with about, everything related to this before in the past. And it only makes sense for those that are loyal to Kathleen Kennedy to have similar issues with Jon and Dave's efforts, right? So I really do got to give them a lot of credit for really being so brave to really initiate this plan to get rid of those over at the Mando 4 team and to actually have many of those fired entirely or moved on over to the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, teams. And that makes things work a little bit easier here. So that brings us to the next big segment about all of this. Now, we know that Mandalorian Season 4 is going to take a big turn. Theme-wise, the overall structure of the show is going to change. It's going to have a very big time jump, stuff like that. However, on to the next thing. The replacements are said to be loyal to Jon and Dave's vision now, along with George's as well. The main reason, too, why the previous team was fired had to do with the fact that they were causing drama with the other creatives that supported Jon and Dave's vision for Luke, Ahsoka, and Anakin to be used in surprising ways for Mando 4. Anakin is actually set to be used in various flashbacks for Order 66, as well as a Force ghost during present time to reunite with Luke in a very special way for the fans to see. The Lucasfilm team felt that this would actually sabotage Kennedy's efforts to give Lucasfilm a new image of fresh content like how she is trying to do with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. Jon and Dave will continue to replace employees over the course of the next 2 years. Part of course, Bob Iger's plan is to actually rebrand Lucasfilm with new workers and more quality-driven projects to arrive on Disney Plus and in theaters for the fans around the globe to actually see. So this kind of fits in with what, everything related to Bob Iger said before in the past, is that they want to focus on more quality-driven shows and movies now and focus away from quantity. Alright, so this is why you might see a right-sizing take place, where, for example, the Lando series may not come to light. Another great example is that it's very possible that you're not going to see a third season of, specific shows out there, like The Bad Batch. That's possible too. They want to focus more on very big Star Wars shows that most of the fans can associate with. That's not to say that The Bad Batch is a terrible Star Wars show. It's just that Bob Iger said this a couple of weeks ago, where he actually questioned, do we really need a third or fourth season on certain shows? Do we really need a fourth sequel on certain movies related to Star Wars or Marvel or stuff like that? That's stuff he's questioning right now. And he wants to right-size things. So, anyways, this is a very interesting thing that's going on right now between Jon and Dave getting the authorization from Bob Iger. And this is, of course, Bob Iger being very desperate too. Make no mistake, he is trying to create his own legacy. He's trying to leave his own footprint into the Star Wars legacy itself, because he doesn't really plan on staying here for long. They actually want him out, and when I say they, I'm talking about the executives and the board. They want Bob Iger out by next year. They don't want him to be a long-form Disney CEO solution. They only wanted him to actually take over Bob Chapek, because Chapek was really lagging behind when it came to the Disney parks and stuff like that. So anyways, fill me in below what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.